Hello, and a joyous welcome to This Woman's Work, a space where you can hear and read about some amazing women, the fantastic jobs they do, and the paths that have led them to where they are today. I'm here today with Annie. Hi, Annie.
Hi.
Could you tell the lovely listener what it is you do for a living?
I'm going to try and keep it to a sentence. I would say, so my title is Senior Social Media Director, but I wear many hats.
Oh, well, you're a woman, so obs.
Obs goes with the territory.
Okay, right, we will go into that. But before we go into that, we're going to go all the way back. We're going to talk about little Annie. So, school, college, what were you like? What were you into?
I was, and this won't shock you because you know me, but I was big into drama and all things creative.
Yeah.
I did really well by kind of creative pursuits, not so well on kind of traditional academic bits and bobs, horrendous at maths. I actually wanted to go to drama school, but my family just couldn't afford it. That was never a route that I was able to take. So I went to college and studied media and journalism, but then I realised that journalism isn't for me.
Right.
Quite quickly, actually. But I was interested in the circuit, so connections and people and that side of things. And then social media arrived, and I remember somebody saying to me, it was a boss of mine, this will never take off. Like, who will put their lives online? This absolutely, it will go nowhere.
Where is that person now?
Honestly.
Unemployed.
Yes, yeah, precisely. Under a rock still.
Hiding, pretending it didn't...
Yeah.
Okay, so before we skip too far ahead, though, so did you go to college? Did you do any A-levels?
I did. I went to college.
What did you do? We don't discuss grades on this channel, but I'm always fascinated to know the mix of things that people do.
Yes. So media and journalism at college, but I didn't finish my courses.
Okay, right. I didn't know if that was a degree. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I didn't finish them because I went travelling. Yeah.
Gap year.
Well, less so than that because I was 18 when I first so I did Camp America. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Went and did Camp America, and that really opened my eyes.
With a friend or just on your own?
No, just completely. So my brother had done it in previous years, and so I thought actually that sounds like a bit of me. So did it and thought this is the most incredible thing. And then when I came back, I couldn't apply myself to anything by way of studies.
Yeah.
I had itchy feet to do more and more and more. But that you have to fund it somehow, right? Or you have to be doing something in the background. But I wasn't. So so then I worked 3 jobs just to be able to fund the next trip, really. So yeah, that's what I did. I got into lots of debt, which I don't recommend.
So this is when you were 18?
Yeah, between 18 and 20, I'd say. I was just a bit...
So you would go off there, come back, work, save, go off again, come back, work, save.
Yes, and then I went to Australia when I was 20 and I applied... Whilst I was over there, I was like, I definitely want to do media. This is really where I want to be. I want to work in TV. So I applied, whilst I was on the beach in Sydney, I applied to the BBC for just like an equivalent of like an internship, basically.
Yeah.
And I got it, and then,
So you'd just flown there on your own?
Yes. Didn't know a soul.
Yeah, and what was the plan flying there?
So... Well, it was an escape.
Just to travel?
No, so it was an escape. My boyfriend at the time, wrong-un of the century, cheated on me, broke my little heart. And I was like, I need to get out of here, but I don't do things by halves. So I was like, how can I get as far away as possible? So I applied for a visa for Australia. I got it online within 2 days.
Wow.
And then I applied for a credit card. Wasn't very financially savvy. And away I went for a year. And it was marvellous. And I did like fruit picking. I worked on a farm. I met the most amazing people who I'm still friends with to this day. So
you did all of that?
Yeah.
And then when did the BBC thing come about then?
So towards the end of my time in Australia, I was speaking to, again, some people that I'd met along the way. You meet so many amazing characters. And they were saying, well, what is it you want to do? And I was like, I probably do need to nail this down now. And I know I love media in all of its capacity, but social wasn't a thing then.
Yeah.
And so I thought, well, what is the best institution really? Like, let's aim high.
Yeah.
Thinking I would never get it. I was based in Cambridgeshire, so I was in Peterborough, thinking, again, that's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
But the stars aligned. And the next thing I know, I was working on Dick and Dom in the Bungalow, if you remember that.
But this was in Australia or back here?
I applied in Australia and I got it in London.
Ah, okay. I was
Yeah.
going to say, I didn't know if you were working, you applied to work in Australia, but wow, okay.
Yeah.
So flew back with the whole new
Yes, yeah.
plan, life.
But then I was just breaking even on my commute
I know.
to get into London because obviously they don't pay particularly well. Maybe that's changed. I hope it has. But I just was so desperate for the experience.
Yeah.
That I was just willing to sacrifice everything.
So you were an intern, you said, so it was kind of like
Yeah,
a
so it was-
runner, was it? Or...
Well, then I then made it up to researcher. So yeah,
Okay.
I originally started as a runner, but that was enough for me to know that I loved it, and I wanted more and more and more of that.
Were you working across shows?
I worked
or-
across shows, so I actually helped out briefly on Jonathan Ross because that was filmed just
Oh my
by
gosh,
the
when he
corridor.
was still on the BBC?
Yeah, so that was really good. I did lots for kind of CBBS and things like that. But it was just wonderful to be in a studio environment with lots of professionals and you're all singing from the same hymn sheet. It was
Just creative
yes,
and
yeah.
hard work.
Hard
but-
work. I was flat broke, but I knew it was the start of something, and I
Yeah.
knew that once I was in, then that was it. I would never look back, and I
Wow.
didn't ever look back, and it was wonderful.
Okay, so then what? Where did you go from the BBC?
Yeah, where did I go from the BBC? I should probably have thought about this ahead of time. I then went to shopping telly.
Okay.
Yes. So I loved
that's
that.
big. That is big money, though, or it was then.
So Ideal World. So it was number 2 to QVC.
Yes.
And then I started as an assistant and then
And
worked
of course,
up
that's
to
back
producer.
up here, isn't it? So you'd come up, save actually probably to
Yes.
try and save
Well, I
some
stayed
money.
here. I was up here and I was going into London, so it was the other way, which is why I was
wow.
flat broke all the time.
Yeah. Okay.
The trains.
Yeah.
So then Peterborough doorstep
Yeah.
made a ton of sense.
Save money.
Yes. So yeah, started as an assistant, worked my way up to producer. Loved being a producer. That's probably the best job I've ever had. Shopping telly, I absolutely loved it. Different stuff every day, different presenters every day, so different personalities to deal with. And
Yeah.
so I think that was the first job where I really learnt on the ground about mastering those relationships. Nearly always exhausted. So Ideal World was shift work. So
Yeah.
you'd work weird patterns, really extensive hours. You know, it was hard yards, so you had to make relationships work for it to be successful. You were spending 12 hours a day with these people.
Yeah. That's what I've heard. Yeah.
So you have to make it work. So I think that was, I loved that job for
And you're as a
many reasons.
producer, you're managing front and back of house. And so are you managing all the crew?
You're responsible for everything.
So you're managing the crew and their tardiness. You're also managing the talent, as we
Yes.
call them, that are
Absolutely.
front. And they've got very different needs going on, haven't they?
Huge. And that's why spinning all of the plates in that role
Yeah.
was just the best learning. Whilst hard yards at the time, the most valuable experience I think I had.
Wow.
So yes, would highly recommend it. I think I was there 3 or 4 years.
Okay.
And then this is when I I realised that actually shift work, and don't know why it dawned on me so late, but it's just not sustainable. Like you
No.
can't. And what I was noticing as well, obviously being young, you want a social life, but I was only able to socialise with that same group of people because all of your kind of friends in normal jobs, you'd completely bypass. You'd be ships in the night. So I'd work right till 1:30 in the morning, and then I'd sleep, and then they'd go to their jobs, and then I wouldn't be back on shift until 6
So you're
p.m. or
completely
something.
out of sync with your normal
Completely
mates.
out of sync. And then it becomes not incestuous, but because you're only seeing the same people, that
You are living and breathing those people.
yeah, absolutely. So I knew it had a shelf life and I knew how to go. So then I moved. I then went to a charity. So I started, in a marketing function for a charity. Not to be charitable, I have to say,
Say that.
is because it was a nice 9 to 5, and I thought
Okay.
this offers better
Well,
balance.
you've gone from a hardcore, high-pressured thing.
Intense.
And then what you've then done is gone, oh, that looks like it's going to be lovely and sweet and heartwarming and 9 to 5.
Agree. Yes, but then it's not fulfilling, is it?
It's definitely a shift change again for you.
All of the gear changes for that one, like a grinding halt on the pace of
Yeah.
life I was used to. But I actually then met my son's dad at that point, so it felt like a nice time to actually invest in relationships beyond, you know, those ones I'd mentioned previously. But yeah, but again, I learned loads at the charity. But then that's where I was told, you know, this whole social media thing is ridiculous. It will never take off. Like,
But when? What are we talking here? What was this? Going to be 2009?
this was 2009.
Okay.
Yeah, so Twitter.
So Facebook was a thing.
Yes, but it's when everyone was still poking each other.
Yeah.
And it was.
My God, I'd completely forgotten you
Yeah.
could poke people on Facebook. That was a thing, wasn't
Yes, yeah. Everyone was still poking.
it?
Businesses.
That's got to be seen as probably a bit aggressive now.
Yeah,
isn't it?
exactly. I don't think it's accepted now. Yeah, it was all about the poke. Businesses hadn't realised.
Remotely, yeah,
No,
yeah,
they
yeah.
hadn't clocked to that. And Twitter, I would say, was most dominant.
Okay.
But again, it was quite corporate by way of news. So, you know, it was
Yes.
purist at that point. Before Elon obviously got his mitts on it. It was very, well, way before that.
Yeah.
But it was very, very pure by way of, if you didn't want to miss something, it would likely be on Twitter first, and then it gained traction
and then
very
people
quickly.
commented, okay.
Yeah, so
So it wasn't people sharing their personal lives. It was
No.
quite,
absolutely, which is why I started doing it for the charity. So I was playing around on these things,
Of course, yeah.
and I didn't fall in love with it immediately because it was quite a foreign concept. If you think back to that point in time, you know, our mobile phones barely did anything beyond send a message. It was literally that, and then you'd run out.
Simpler times.
Yeah, I miss them. Yeah, then you'd run out of credit, and then you can't send anything. You'd waiting for your free batch of 10
there was no
messages.
unlimited data, was there, back
No,
then?
exactly. So it was completely different, and you would converse and connect with people completely differently.
So, you're now at the charity with a boss who thinks social is never going to go anywhere.
Waste of time.
Yeah, waste of time.
You can play on it if you want to, but you've still got to do all your other work. So the
Yeah.
other work was print based.
Of course.
And a bit of
Load of
online,
leaflets,
load of
pamphlets,
leaflets. Couldn't
yeah.
get enough of paper, and online as well on the web. And that was it. So it was a kind of a kind of thing that they allowed me to do, but it was a passion project. There was no end. Yeah, they didn't see where it would go. But thankfully, it gained traction super quickly, whereby it then became, you know,
A thing.
90% of my job whilst I was there, which then led me on to my next role, which was for Thomas Cook. So I went in as social media manager for there, and it was when these social roles were becoming a thing.
Yeah.
They didn't exist before, but they were still very much classed as, you know, my friends were still saying to me, do you just play on Facebook all day? That's what they thought
Yeah.
my job was, which unfortunately wasn't the case. But I managed 12 of their brands for them, so that was in at
Just
the deep
you?
end. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we brought on an agency later, but there was no kind of...
God, they were getting value for money out of you.
Yeah,
weren't they?
there was no big internal team to speak of.
Yeah.
And the agency worked super cheaply because, you know, it was a great kind of client to have. So,
yeah.
but that was interesting in and of itself, but because of how it was evolving, like we've said, like we hit upon a winner that any time we'd publish anything that was blue and showed blue skies and things like that, the interest and engagement would go through the roof. If
Yeah.
we'd put something generic or a city break or something like that, people were far less engaged. But it was the kind of psychology of
Of the dream.
let's play to that. Or if the weather was terrible, we would then go out with
Yeah.
all of this, you know, aspirational content. And it's not groundbreaking by any stretch, but
Well,
at
it
the
was back
time,
then.
at the
Yes,
time,
yeah.
it's revolutionary. And you could only really do static posts, so you couldn't do video. Video was like a
Yeah.
pipe dream. So it was just really basic. So then to be able to flash up a blue image and it go crazy or viral, for want of a better term,
Yeah.
was really quite something back then. But obviously we've moved on leaps and bounds.
Wow. So what did you leave Thomas Cook as?
Where did I go after Thomas Cook? Then I met another man.
Did you? So had you had Bailey at this point?
Yes, I had Bailey,
So you've
yeah.
got little baby Bailey.
He barely, and I wasn't divorced yet, but we were separated.
Yeah.
But then it opened up the world for me to kind of meet somebody else.
Yeah.
And he owned his own kind of IT company and things like that. And he really pushed me on, actually, during my time at Thomas Cook, to say, you could go out on your own. You could do this independently. Like, there's so many businesses that would want your skill set.
Yeah.
It's still a bit of an unknown. It's the dark arts. So why don't, you know, the clients I'm working with, I can sell in your services. How about it?
Wow.
And having that confidence from somebody else in you to say you can do this was everything. So I did it. I set up my own business, and in the first month I got 2 clients, and that was 10 grand a month.
So basically, you're talking
just
about
off those.
running your own little agency, for want of a better phrase. Or,
Yes. So I did set up my own agency and consultancy. So, so these 2 clients, that was just 10 grand a month just between the 2 of those, and I held them for the first year, and I was like, I was fully prepared to go into that and not make any money in year 1. Yeah, so it was amazing. And one of the clients I took was Heathrow Airport. So, yeah, that was a good one to land.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was what I did next.
Can I just also take a little pause here to say that that is so lovely how you have just described that. You have described that by saying, like, and I think, in my experience of certain situations, and potentially a man would go, yeah, so I just decided to set it up on my own and da-da-da-da-da. Whereas you have really honestly gone, this guy gave me the idea, he had the confidence in me,
Yeah.
you've really given him recognition.
Absolutely, yeah.
Which is lovely, and that's so kind and decent.
Yes,
And
yeah.
I think that there is not enough of that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Of people giving recognition for where things and how things happened in a certain way, whatever. But
Oh,
anyway,
I've never
sorry,
thought about it
so
like
I
that.
wanted to say that.
Yeah, no,
Because
he
you
did.
just said it candidly. But
Yes.
actually, you know, you didn't have to say it like that. You could have said, yeah, so I set up my own agency.
Yeah,
Anyway,
yeah.
so you're
No,
in this
he-
agency
yes.
now.
Yes, that was great. Heathrow were really demanding though.
Yeah. Really?
And really demanding, and they wanted me on site a lot.
Yeah.
But it's
Did
fine
you get,
because
did you get cheap flights though?
I didn't get cheap flights, no, because
Damn it.
they are the institution that facilitates everything. So really,
Oh, but they must. I mean, look, let's face it, they know people.
oh, they know people, but
So-
they were holding those people back. No,
Damn it.
they were a great bunch, and I thank them immensely because it opened so many doors for me. But their problem statement was, we have so many people passing through the airport each year, but how do we engage with them on social? How do we potentially monetize that?
Yeah.
Because if you think, you know, as soon as you set foot in the airport, and now it's behaviourally, it's much more of a thing, but you would then log into the Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
You would often use your social channels to be able to access the Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
And then so therefore you're sharing that data and insights. They were saying, brilliant, we know all of this information about these individuals. How do we potentially upsell? You know, you may be hungry. Why don't you pop into Gordon Ramsay? Or, you know,
Yeah.
if you've forgotten something, nip to Boots or Ted Baker or whatever. So it was
Okay.
my job to then commercialise
Gosh,
that
yeah.
and the time spent. So this dead time really between entering and flying out.
Yeah. This
What-
shopping and food time.
Yes. So that was the problem statement, which was quite a big problem statement, as well as kind of niche groups. So they were saying to me, for example, the Chinese passenger set would come through and spend 25% more than any other demographic. How do we engage with them? But they don't use the same social channels as
They
we
don't,
use here.
no.
So that was my first entry into WeChat, Weibo. How do we then set this up for Heathrow so we can engage these consumers in a way that they are most comfortable? And it's a seamless transaction. So I set all of that up whilst I was there as well.
And this
so,
is just you, or did you have
Yeah.
other people?
So there was a team on the ground there that was already
But you were there as
established.
the specialist.
Yes.
As the, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Gosh.
So, but also, this was my first entry into using influencers. Now, influencers weren't even called influencers then. So there were bloggers.
Yeah.
And I used an influencer that I still follow to this day, and she's hugely successful and like multimillionaire from it now. But when I worked with her, it was at Heathrow to sell in the benefits of personal shopping. So
Right.
she came, she worked for an hour and a half. We paid her £10,000, loads at the time.
Yeah.
But within the first hour of our blog post being live, we could track £125,000 worth of sales through her activity. So
Shut the front door.
yeah, exactly. Wild, isn't it? So that was
And
my
you
first
obviously
entry.
knew that was going to happen.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you hope and pray and you manifest.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was incredible. So that was Lydia
Wow.
Millen. Who's,
yes,
yeah,
yeah.
and she brought along her boyfriend at the time, Ali Gordon, who she's now married to, and he's now a full-time influencer. And he was saying to us, I'm an electrician, I'm just dipping my toe in this because I see that Lydia's doing so well. And the rest is history. Like, he's done hugely well for himself as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So, and how long were you doing your agency for then? How long were you doing that for?
So I did that for 5 years. So I didn't do Heathrow for 5 years. I did that for about a year and a half. Because that was a kind of rolling day rate. So
Wow.
yeah, and that was only supposed to have been for 4 months, but I did it, yeah, a year and a half in the end.
Gosh.
It was great. But then because I split up with said guy,
Yeah.
so I was like, right, that's it.
Yeah.
I'm not doing this anymore. And because it was kind of freelance and contract work, I felt, and I had Bailey obviously
Yeah.
part-time, that didn't feel comfortable enough. I wanted a salaried role.
Yeah. You wanted the stability.
Yeah, the stability of knowing I'd get set money
Yeah.
in per month. Yes, it would be less, but it's guaranteed.
Yeah.
Well, as guaranteed as any corporate job can be. Yeah, so I moved on to my next role at that point.
Which was.
Slightly less glamorous, but it was for a company called RS Components. They are based in Corby and they
Okay.
have a head office in London. And this was a real lesson in if you still have to apply the same principles even if you don't love the product. So
But also that's sort of B2B, is it, as well
Yeah,
now?
it's
Because
B2B.
you've been looking, so you've been very much a D2C, haven't you?
Yes.
Kind of talking straight
Yes.
to the end user.
absolutely.
And now you've got to talk to.
Yeah, businesses you don't want to know. They're
Yeah.
not interested unless they're in market, and then you've got to time it perfectly for that. And they don't tend to be influenced by a social post in that
No.
environment. So I then took on the EMEA role there, so working across Europe. But and that was head of social media for them, and that meant so much to me because I really wanted this head of
Yes,
role.
yeah. Well, you've just run your own successful
Precisely.
agency. You can't then go back from that.
No. And I was really quite big on that, not by way of status, but to your point, it's around the recognition of it ties to my capabilities and
Yeah.
what I'm able to do. So then I had a lovely team. And yeah, RS was great because one of the primary partners was Google as well. So you were able to
Okay.
test so much cool stuff and do lots by way of innovation. They spent lots with Google.
Yeah.
They were a really interesting company. But yeah, I didn't like the product wasn't sexy.
Yeah.
But then the next one was a real change of pace and one that I could not have foreseen at all. But I landed TikTok.
I know.
So that was from RS.
So I landed TikTok.
Yes.
We're not diminishing that. So what happened? So you must have seen a job ad.
I saw a job advertised. It was on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
I thought I'll throw my hat in the ring.
Give it a go.
Yeah, but it already had. So you know where it says like 200 plus applicants, and I think they cap it at 200. But I knew there was obviously many more than that. Even though that's a myth, by the way, because actually that's link clicks and it's not applicants. But that's just a behind the scenes
Just to let
thing.
everyone know, yeah.
Yes, so don't be put off by that if you see loads of applicants, because that does turn people off. It deters people from applying because you think if that's
I'm never
the pool,
going to get a look in.
yeah. So there were hundreds of applicants, and I was working in London one day for RS, and I just received an email saying we'd love to chat to you. Obviously, had a mild stroke and heart attack and thought this can't possibly be the case. But then thinking, do you know what? Even if I chat to this woman, that's
You've made a connection.
yeah, I've made a connection,
Yeah.
and that was going to be more than enough for me. But yeah, I then did 5 interviews for them. It was really quite rigorous.
And what was this? What was the job title? Head
This
of
was director of social media and digital.
so properly hardcore.
The hardest of hardcore. I had no idea what I was getting myself into, but yeah. So
And had you got to director level at RS? Or were you
I was head of.
head of. Okay, so it is the next.
It's a progression.
It's the next thing up. But even so,
Yeah.
had a hell of a.
But in tech as well, like titles are really ambiguous because, you know, everybody that was working around. I mean, even the more junior members of the team, I was thinking, well, you'd be a head of somewhere else, or
okay.
it's wild. And all of my peers there, which I know we're skipping along to, they were all from Google, Amazon, Facebook. So I really felt like a fish out of water. But
I mean, I love it though. So 5 interviews. I mean, did you have to do lots of presentations?
I did loads of presentations. I had to do loads of chemistry sessions with other teams. I had to do presentations back by way of my ideas of where I would start with this, where I would go, what the ambition is. I had to pull so much together.
Oh, over what period of time?
This was over kind of maybe 2 weeks. Yeah, whilst obviously looking after my child
And
working between Corby and London full time in a head of capacity.
Oh my God, you must have not slept for 2 weeks.
No, it was wild. But again, like you pull energy
But I'm guessing
from somewhere.
through all of that, are you aware that you're getting through to the next stage, or were you not? So you didn't know, because you must have been. That must have been a
yes.
next stage. Okay, in the who, because they, like you say, they've got to clear people out as quickly as possible.
Yeah, no, I had no idea because they're all booked up front.
Right.
So you'll go through it, and you don't know how many other people you're up against.
Yeah.
So they don't share that.
You never see anyone else?
No, and because it was all remote, because this was at the start of the pandemic.
Oh.
Yeah, so everything was remote, which they didn't like doing. So ByteDance, which is the owner of TikTok, they were very much an in-person business pre-COVID. So I know it didn't sit well with them at all, but they were saying, listen, we're going to have to facilitate all of these virtually, I hope that's okay for you. And I was thinking, well, terrific, because it saves me attempting to find time in a day that I don't have. But it was fantastic. And even at the interview stage, speaking to these people and finding out more about them and their journey, I spent a lot of time doing that.
Yeah.
It was fascinating. And they were dotted all across Europe, because that was my remit. It was EU.
Oh my gosh.
And then I landed it.
And I mean, what was that thing like? Were you getting an inkling that you might be getting close, or?
No, because I don't think you can. Like, I think...
You just had no concept of how you were doing?
No, because this was far too big. Like, this
and
was
also,
the biggest network.
Not in person, you've not got that read, have you?
No read. And it ends, and the Zoom chat ends, and on you go with your day. So it was wild. But it felt like when I was offered the role... And you don't want to play hardball, do you? Because you're like, I'll accept bare minimum because I just want to be in the door. And I did say to the girl recruiting, and I regret this now because you're underpaying yourself completely, but I was saying, even if I had to kind of sweep the offices, I don't care. I want to be in so badly, because it was the fastest growing social network.
And of course, she really would get a bit, probably for saving some pennies, might have got some extra.
Yeah, so I think, well, I know now that my peers were on a higher salary than me, but I didn't care because it was still a step up from where I was before. It still represented progression for me, but I could have gone harder on reflection.
I mean, what was that first day like? First month like?
Well, it was insane because
you're still in lockdown, I'm guessing. Aren't you?
Still in lockdown. And then obviously kind of personal circumstances really took a turn, which I'll come on to, which totally threw me again. But like the first day, to answer your question, it was wild because you do like a virtual onboarding all day long, and it took the entire day. And because they don't use any systems that you would use, like generic systems, so there's no kind of Microsoft Teams, there's no Google, you don't use any of that. It's a Chinese company.
Oh, of course.
So you use completely bespoke, highly secured, encrypted tools. So you have to learn them all. And it was so overwhelming because I was thinking, God, how do you learn that as well as do the influencing people piece, building relationships, as well as hit the brief of meeting the job and create a strategy and do all of the things?
Oh my God.
It was really overwhelming.
It's a term for that. It's called a head fuck.
Yeah, it was massively head fuck. But one that felt really exciting, and I was so proud to just be in the door. But then my kind of imposter syndrome was making me think, well, you won't make it through probation. You'll be found out you're not good enough because all of your peers from Google, blah, 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 are so much better. And it's a walk in the park for them. But for you, you're really fighting to be here. And I felt that quite a lot of the way through my time there.
Did you?
Yeah.
I know you have a little life in you yet. I know you have a lot of strength left. I know you have a little
So, because obviously at this point then, what we're talking, 2021 are we?
No, 2020.
2020.
Yes. So it was 3 weeks.
Properly in a whole weird place.
Yeah.
So
Lockdown.
that's all weird. And was TikTok... I mean, TikTok really did come into its own, didn't it, during lockdown and
Yes.
stuff, and all the little, blinding lights. We all did that, didn't we? Yeah, that kind of thing. Wow, what an interesting time
Yes.
to join a really interesting company having a moment.
Yes. And it was startup. It was only 2 years old.
Yeah.
I mean, in other markets it was more established, but in the UK it was still growing. But then, because the PR team had done such an excellent job, they were brilliant. They really positioned themselves across media as, TikTok is your saviour through lockdown. Like, it's your escape, it's your entertainment, it's your source of information, it's everything. So people were spending 10, 12, 13 hours a day on it. So they went from kind of average kind of watch time of maybe 25 minutes to over at like an hour and a half. So, and that was per sitting. So you'd go on multiple times and view. So my role, they were saying, we've grown at such a rate. Like, how do we put some parameters around this? What is our strategy? How do we monitor conversation that's going on about us? And then how do we create content that speaks to that? So reassures people by way of trust, concerns with their children, all of those things. So that was the role, but it was a lot. Yeah.
Well, that is a lot because, like you say, in many ways, it's growing of its own accord.
Oh.
So it didn't need people to grow it, did it? It was growing of its own accord.
Yes.
But what it needed was carefully managing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
it was wild, and they were onboarding people at such a huge rate. So I would join town halls, and this was across Europe, and they'd say another 1,000 people have started, and in the various offices, and it was wild. But just to keep up with growth, and the monetization side of it, so all the ads and everything else. That was growing super quickly as well, and it was like the perfect storm of all of the things coming together. And shoppable social was then much more prevalent. You could shop within your feed, and you wouldn't have to come out and go to a separate independent website. So massive time and a huge boom.
Change.
Yeah.
What an amazing time to be there, though.
I know. But it was 3 weeks into the role that Bailey's dad died.
Yeah.
So then my priorities completely changed. So going from, I'm going to nail it here, I'm going to get right to the top, to I just need to survive and make sure my son's okay.
Yeah.
I'm just going to do enough to be okay here.
How old was Bailey then?
8.
Yeah. So aware?
Yes.
Really
yeah,
aware.
Absolutely. And he used to spend half of his time with his dad, half of his time with me. So super close relationships with both of us. And 3 weeks into such a massive role to say it derailed my focus is an understatement, but I couldn't let that happen outwardly.
You must have told them, though.
I did. I told them, and I took 2 weeks off, and then I was straight back and never spoke about it again, really.
Oh my god!
Because I didn't know these people.
No.
I had built no relationships.
And no reputation, really.
No reputation, no relationships established. You've just got to get on, and you've got to do it well.
So you've got the work opportunity of your life.
Absolutely.
Oh, Annie, gosh.
Yeah. So that changed everything. It changed the entire course of my life then. That's obviously how I know you, is because of the change. But so I definitely feel like I could have done more in my time there, but I'm also really proud of what I did achieve. And it was a huge stepping stone, and the exposure it gave and the interest then other people had in me and other employers and things like that skyrocketed, which was amazing. But I had no intention of leaving. I loved it.
Wow. The only thing I do remember you saying about it was there was quite a lot of staff churn.
Yes.
As in, because like you say, you'd think, I mean, definitely probably at, I don't know, a higher level, maybe it wasn't the case, but people would just think, oh my God, I'm never going to leave. I want to stay here forever. But actually, it had quite a lot of churn.
Yes,
didn't it?
yeah. The tenure time was really very short. During my time there, it was 9 months.
Yeah.
And lots of people were on 3 months' notice. So really, it made your decision after 6 to go. But I spent 3 years there. So.
And that's almost because of burnout, is it, do you think, why people would leave?
Yeah, and the demand my role was, by the end of it, became global. So I started with EMEA, but then I took on wider markets. So then there was no real switch off. So I would go from my European markets in the day and then straight into the evening into the Americas, etc. And because with my situation, when was I able to spend time with my son? Like, not that often.
Yeah.
But knowing this is
This
the
is
job
a job
I
of
love.
yeah, this is like a real pinnacle point for your career.
Yeah.
And also for you to provide for him and build a
Absolutely.
life for you both.
Yes, yes.
You can't muck it up. That God, the
yeah.
pressure you must have. That's all I keep thinking is the pressure you must have felt in
Yeah.
every single way.
Absolutely. And it doesn't go away. Like, I still feel that pressure every day now. And I sometimes have to remind Bailey, you know, I'm mum, I'm dad, I'm everything. And I'm trying to
Yeah.
work, but I'm also trying to be here. So you feel like you don't do either particularly well. And that, I hate that, because I was always an overachiever.
Yeah.
But I'm not overachieving in either set, I feel now, which is so hard. It's a really bitter pill to swallow. But also, I don't have no other choice. Like,
No.
you have to get on. Like, you do have to do it. And like I say, and with TikTok, I made some excellent connections, and they've also moved on to other things. So there's definitely, you know, I think building a connection in the workplace is super important, but you don't do it from a place of, I only want to befriend you because I want a connection. It genuinely has to be rooted in something
Yeah.
substantial. And that, I still have great friends from that time, but it was brilliant. It was just, yeah, it was demanding.
But life changing, I guess, at the same time.
Yes.
So what made you... So you'd obviously done a couple of years maybe, and then you sort of think, maybe I need to... 2.5 years, and sort of think, well, actually, maybe I need to move on or try
Yeah.
something else.
I think I was feeling that quite a bit sooner than 2.5 years. I think after the first year, I thought,
I don't know how much longer I can do
yeah,
this.
I can't, this is a lot. And so many people within the team had left, you know, they'd decided it's not for them. But then, of course, there's 10,000 people all like banging the door down to get in. So they didn't really feel the impact of that necessarily. But then I was headhunted. So,
Right, okay.
yeah, it kind of took the decision
Yes.
away, really.
Because that's the problem. It's TikTok.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, that is tricky.
Yeah, it's really tricky. But I
You
was
must have been headhunted a lot, though. And then, but this one particular role, you thought, actually, yeah, I'll give that.
Yes, and the main appeal was the fact it's one market. It's
Yeah.
just the UK.
You just thought, I need to simplify my...
Yeah, absolutely. But I think that was a bit misguided, because actually it's a hugely demanding role. So again,
Yeah.
it's another step up again. So I went from director of social and digital, and now I'm senior director
Right.
of social transformation. And transformation, of course, means everything.
Yeah.
So it's almost ripping up what's there, rebuilding, and then flying from there. So the demand is massive.
Yeah.
But actually, it's really enjoyable, because, again, I get to do everything and shape it exactly as I believe it should be done.
I mean, hashtags, are they still a thing? Do they still...
Not as dominantly as they were.
No, because I'm saying this because I have noticed that.
Yeah, they were
That whereas it
everything.
used to be like hashtagging the hell out of everything,
Yeah.
I hardly see brands or other people really hashtagging much anymore.
They said last year they don't like you using any more than 3.
Yeah.
So before it was 10.
Yes.
And now it's 3. So you really have to keep up to date. So when I was at TikTok, we noticed that, I mean, they wouldn't even really share this with us, but on average every 12 weeks there was a pretty significant change by way of, okay, what was now considered, you know, what was optimum. So
Right.
with Instagram, to your question, no more than 3, much longer descriptions by way of discoverability. And then, of course, I know we weren't talking specifically to content, but then they were really pushing Reels to rival TikTok. So
Yes.
if you were doing video, long captions, captions also on screen for users with sound off, and then kind of minimum hashtags, then you
Well,
were quizzing.
pre-TikTok, Instagram was pretty much still, like you're saying, there was some video, but it was still mostly still
Yeah.
filtered
Yes.
pictures,
Yeah.
descriptions, hashtags. TikTok's come along, all about video. It is all about video.
Yes.
Even, you know, what might look like a static post with some text on and the AI voice over it, it's still really sort of video, isn't
Yeah,
it? It's a
yes, video
form of-
first, yeah.
Video, form of- so
Yeah.
obviously that's then changed Instagram considerably, and it is just I don't even know. I'd be interested to know what the stat is now, but it really is. So that when we're talking about content, it comes down to image and video, isn't it? And having the right mix of those, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. But also Instagram want you to use their full suite. So obviously Instagram's owned by Meta. So they own Facebook, WhatsApp, etc. Yeah. I mean, Threads.
I don't even know what I've got it for this one's work.
Yeah,
and it's just kind of sitting there, and I'm like, and of course they're pushing it quite a bit, aren't they? And I'm like, I just find it like a scary thing.
Don't be scared.
I'm not. Look, I keep.
There's only brands left on it now. Anyway, everyone diverted for about a week, but then they lost. So they had huge traction because their model was excellent, which is just import all of your followers. No other network does that.
Yeah.
So ease of acquisition, tick.
Of course.
But then everyone was going, well, what is this? There's nothing really happening here. It's a bit rubbish. So their followers, I think it was on the BBC, it was saying, however many millions literally overnight just dropped because they haven't invested in it fully ahead of launch. And they only launched it as early as they did because Elon was setting a fire to Twitter.
Yeah, and they wanted to capitalise on it.
Yeah. So Instagram do want you to use their full suite, and when I say that, I mean they want you to use stories, they want you to use video, they also want you to use static, long text, hashtags, the full thing. They want you to use audio, the lot.
Yeah, music.
Yeah. So if you do that and you spend a decent amount of time on feed, so you have to engage with others and then they have to engage with you, then you'll be showing kind of green lights to the algorithm, which essentially is just, it's a model of
you're
you
showing
ticking
them
boxes.
that you're playing the game.
Yeah.
You're playing ball.
But if you engage and nurture a genuine community, they largely do the selling on your behalf anyway. But really, creating that engagement is a massive signal to the algorithm that you're doing something right. So your organic reach will be switched up a notch.
Okay, so you're giving, rather than giving them money value, you're giving them like almost existence value. You're saying you value
time, and
you're a valuable account.
Yes.
Because of the amount of time people are willing to spend with you. So you've either, in essence, okay, so you've got to win on money or win on time.
Yes, that's it. And I would say engagement is always the best route.
Do you think that's the case? Do you think that's even the case on, like, say, YouTube and stuff as well? Must be, isn't it? Watch time and stuff.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And that's why they only really let you monetize over a certain amount. And when I say that, I mean from a creator point of view. Yeah. So on TikTok now, it's 1 minute and 1 second because they're trying to push longer form content, right? So
you can only monetize 1 minute and 1 second content.
You can't. If you have a viral video that reaches 10 million people and it's 59 seconds, you'll not make a penny.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, unless it's through partnerships. So unless a brand reaches out and says, that looks great, why don't you partner with us? We'll give you a load of cash. And that absolutely does happen. But from a monetization, creator fund point of view, then, Instagram's not dissimilar. So they really want, it's dwell time in platform. It's getting people to spend large amounts of time, which is why they've now made it all shoppable in-app. So you don't ever leave. There's no reason for you to leave. You see something, you want it, you buy it, you stay on. You then tell your friends about it.
It's like a really shit version of the Ariana Grande song.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, exactly.
I see it. I'm going to stay on it.
I got it.
I'm going to say it. I'm going to click on it. And then it wouldn't have been quite so catchy for Ariana, would it?
Precisely that.
What is it about you particularly that you think has maybe made you successful?
All I know is that as a child, I knew I wanted more. And I knew I had to dig my way out of that. So that's where the ambition came from. It's I don't want more of this, and how do I shape a path for me? Hitting upon something that spoke to my personality.
You have followed your heart, definitely.
Definitely, I followed my heart, and I think I.
Because there's other ways you could have earned money. You've made quite smart decisions. You weren't going to do something you didn't really want to do, were you?
No, well, this is it. I mean, you say it's a smart set of decisions, but actually none of it was by design, really. It was all, well, I say none of it. The early part wasn't by design, it was pure accident, because remember, this was evolving before my very eyes and didn't exist at all. So it's not
what you're saying, right place, right time?
Well, I'm saying that,
because I don't believe that, but anyway, I'll let you say it.
I'm saying that there just so happened to be something in social that played to me being a natural oversharer, a natural wanting to connect with people, to bring people together. there was a tool that then facilitated that at scale, and it fascinated me. So it was that
Yeah.
interest point. It was like the meeting of all of the.
But I guess your
the
background
points.
prior to that had been content.
Yes.
So when you produce all that kind of stuff, so you knew fundamentally what good and bad content looked like.
Yeah.
So that was a given. You knew how to make good and bad content.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I guess particularly probably, I wonder whether most of all, even that ideal shopping, because that's very responsive, isn't it? I.e.,
very.
people are watching it live, aren't
It's
they?
live
And
in
they're
the moment.
interacting, they're ordering live. So in
Yeah.
many ways, that's like TikTok is now in some respects, isn't it? But it's
Yes.
you're looking at responsive content even
Yes.
back then.
Yeah, you're right. And I've never thought about it like that either, because, again, like we'd spoken about, there's so many changes as to what the algorithms want.
Yeah.
And it
And
wasn't
there must
always...
have been even then, like the right presenter,
Yes.
how you're shooting it, because
Yeah.
certain things didn't quite work for certain products. And
Absolutely.
times of day.
Yes,
So
yeah.
actually, that is still the same sort of thing. So when you got that job and you were doing that,
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, actually, you're quite right. And also with the live TV element, I think that going out of your comfort zone and being like, shit, this is make or break. Like you're live.
can't take it back, can you?
No. And if everything goes
if
wrong,
somebody literally poos themselves on a
yeah,
screen,
it's on your watch.
yeah.
So that
No one
elevated-
did. We don't
Yeah,
think
no one
anyone
did.
did.
I don't think they're not. Certainly not on my watch. So, but yeah, you're right. You have to be really responsive and reactive in the moment. And it was bizarre as well, because that time, for me, by way of kind of audio and things like that. So you'd have a presenter, you were plugged into their ear, they would have to listen to you talk as well as do all of the presenting and all the amazing things. But I also, as the producer, had to watch in the gallery of all of the potential shots that we're
Yeah.
having, the live sales coming through or not, more pressing, the
And
pattern of the
almost
show.
changed tack.
Yes, completely. So to just be switched on to so many things actually
Yeah.
was a real art in itself. So I think if you're a
Okay.
mum, you're probably already doing it without even knowing.
You're talking about juggling and multitasking
Yes.
on a
Yeah,
high pressured scale. So, yeah.
absolutely, yes. But
And
I'm-
you took that in your stride.
yes, which
Yeah,
I
okay.
didn't think I would have been able to do. Like I've surprised myself more than anyone else that I did that. But you either thrive in that or decide it's not
Yeah.
for you. But I think, to your point earlier about people potentially listening, I think if you're a mum, you're naturally switched on to, okay, the chicken's cooking, it's got 10 more minutes, the child is begging for this, the doorbell's going, all of
Yeah,
the things. Like
yeah.
all of your brain is just firing
At
to keep
once.
things going. Yeah. So I think honing it in a professional capacity, you can do it. Like it's not something that you're not able to do.
Fozia, who is this CEO, amazing CEO of like a bioscience division up in Newcastle, so proper like hardcore pharmaceutical kind
Wow.
of development, that kind of thing, cutting edge stuff. And she announced after she was talking about confidence, and she said, because if or self belief and doubt, we talked about imposter syndrome. She said, no matter how much you're doubting yourself, there's a mediocre man out there that thinks he's bossing you.
100%
And it
true.
really made me laugh. I want to get that put on a t-shirt.
Yeah, absolutely true. And I see it all the time.
Yeah, I bet you do.
But what grates me the older I get is that those mediocre men also have excellent women at home running all of the other elements.
Oh, yes.
And so
So all they've got to do is be mediocre.
correct.
And they're still mediocre.
Right, precisely. Which is why I'm saying please don't be intimidated by that, because I'll still go toe to toe with them, but yet I do all of the childcare upbringing, as in like I'm
Yes,
everything for Bailey. I'm
yes.
both parents. I'm all of the things. I do all of the travel, where they have everything laid on for
Yeah.
them. So I wouldn't want people to be intimidated by that or worry about going into those environments.
So my two final questions are always, what advice would you give your younger self? Could be any version of your younger self, really small, or
Yeah.
that young girl in Oz. What
Yeah,
advice?
keep going is just the headline. There are so many opportunities where I could have felt intimidated, not good enough, not able to do it. But just stay consistent.
Yeah.
So just keep going.
Believe in yourself.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, then the final one is advice just to throw out there into the world. Either a mantra that you follow or
That's so good. There's so many. Because I'm really big on all of these
I
mantras.
love,
and
yeah,
things.
we all love a mantra. Well, look, we're women, we love a mantra.
Yeah, we do. I think it's not dissimilar to the kind of keep going thing. I often say to my son, it's just the never give up. It's that. There's so many curveballs. And I'm not saying it's easier to give up, because actually that's incredibly difficult to give something up. But yeah, to just keep going. And if you have an interest, pursue it relentlessly. Like if you can. And I know it doesn't always make money but you know, we've all got the same 24 hours in a day. It's how we use them. So that's why I spend my time geeking out on an AI at the moment. I don't want to be left behind.
Yeah. On that note, I'll say thank you very much, Annie.
Thank you.
If you would like to hear more about this chat, see some pics and read about how to get started in this industry and or this role, then please go to our website www.thiswomanswork.org. The link is on this podcast page and across our socials. Sincere thanks.